Hey guys, good evening. So, I'd like to tell you a little story about the Zeta Greys, the Orion Wars, and the Anunnaki. So, the story of the Zeta Greys goes that the Zeta Greys are parallel reality version Earth humans. They're from another parallel reality version of us. And so in their civilization, they became very telepathically evolved, very technologically evolved, very knowledgeable, but began to lose the emotion, the connection to emotion in their heart. And as a result of this, they mutated, they couldn't reproduce, they had natural disasters, they had to move underground. That's why they got the big black eyes, I believe. And they eventually used their technology to tunnel through to parallel realities in search of viable genetic material to produce a hybrid species. They set up base in the Zeta Reticuli system and began to explore the idea of extracting eggs, semen, genetic material from the humans and producing hybrid races, as we were a perfect hybrid mix for them because we were kind of the opposite. We weren't that technologically evolved, we weren't that telepathic, but we were able to reproduce like rabbits, and we were very emotional beings, so it made a good match for the hybridization program. They went on to produce the five hybrid species, three of which are the Yael, the Shikani, and the Pleiel. So that's one story, and I'll get to how these all link up in a minute and how they connect to the idea of exploring our multidimensional self and our soul, and how the idea of all reality is fractal and holographic. And don't worry if this is going over your head, I'll get to it in a minute. So the idea is that the Orion system had this war where it was very similar to Star Wars. So the idea is that George Lucas, either consciously or unconsciously, channeled the material from something that happened a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. In the Orion system, there was a war very similar to what's portrayed in Star Wars. According to Bashar, there was a band of people called the Black League who they called themselves that because they were hiding in the shadows, and they tried to fight back against the oppression of their dark leaders, their evil oppressive leaders, with fire. The idea is they were fighting fire with fire, and it all went haywire and it all went catastrophe because fighting fire with fire doesn't work. This is the lesson from that story. And the story of the Anunnaki is that we as Anunnaki, because the idea is that these are all aspects of us. I believe you, if you're resonating to this course, likely have incarnations in a lot of these civilizations, likely have aspects of your multidimensional present here and now soul matrix that are connected to these systems, such as the Orion system, Anunnaki, these connections to Lyra and the cat beings in ancient Egypt, and Sirius, Pleiades, Arcturus, Yael, Shikani, Pleiel. So it's all aspects of our multidimensional self and our soul as a multidimensional entity, and how everything exists here and now as us, and our soul exists here and now as us, and we can sense into it through our energy field and our greater awareness, and how through in this awareness we can sense into the fact that our multidimensional aspects of ourselves, and begin to get glimpses and visions and downloads and insights in dream time from these aspects of ourselves to assist us in this journey now. So as we're going through this evolution, we are and can begin to view ourselves as souls. We're no longer identifying. A big goal of this program is to begin to get you to begin to not so identify so much with yourself as a physical body, just as the physical body, not to disregard it, because like looking after the physical body and grounding and realizing it is part of our interdimensional self and a very valid part for this journey and a very beautiful part. So we don't disregard the body, but we see that it is an aspect of ourself, and we are a multidimensional soul. And as we go through this energetic transformation, we begin to sense into all these different aspects of our multidimensional soul matrix, and within that we can begin to sense into whether we have incarnations in the Orion system, the Anunnaki, the Grey Federation, Sirius, and the hybrids, etc., and begin to look at what is the exploration of our soul. What are we exploring? How are we evolving as a soul? What is our higher consciousness exploring? The idea of, well, these are some of the stories. And so to get back to the Anunnaki story, an aspect of ourselves. So I believe that we have incarnations in Anunnaki, in Orion, and the other systems. And so us as these systems, like we're kind of exploring the experience from many different perspectives, one experience, and learning and evolving as a soul from multiple different perspectives. And as a soul, we view this all multidimensionally simultaneously. And so the story of the Anunnaki is they came to Earth in search of gold because they needed to produce monatomic gold to repair their atmosphere because their planet was dying. And after a while, they realized they couldn't do it themselves, so they genetically engineered a slave race, us humans back then. This is what we evolved from. They crossed the local hominids, the local species, the apes, with many different varieties of extraterrestrial DNA, I believe, to create a species that was perfect to be a slave to harvest the gold for them. And the idea was they genetically modified us so we would be disconnected from our pineal gland and our connection to spirit and source. And we see this in the images of the Anunnaki bird beings holding the pine cone, which symbolizes the pineal gland and symbolizes how they manipulated control of us spiritually, so we would be easy to control and we wouldn't have big awakenings and go out on our own life purpose. So and at the same time, they genetically engineered us to look up to leaders, so we would be easy to control. And we see how that's sort of run down into modern day humanity, where people are always looking for outside validation from other people they look as authority figures. This comes from the genetic modification, as I understand it, that the Anunnaki did to us to look outside of ourselves for validation and for confirmation we're doing the right thing, whatever that is. See, very strange way we think. And so Enlil and Enki, the two brother leaders of the Anunnaki, eventually fell out. Enki wanted to help humanity, eventually got compassion and felt regret for what he'd done to humanity, enslaved them, and he tried to help humanity. Enlil wanted to go on with the cause, and there's this big story of these two warring factions, the eagle and the serpent, that filters down right into modern day, with the eagle and serpent symbols in many areas of modern symbology and mystery teachings. And so the idea is that these are all aspects of our of our multidimensional self. The idea is that as source consciousness, we're on an exploration of what it means to be a polarized, a dual being. The idea that we can experience the darkness and the light, the contrast in reality, the infinite experiences in reality. And so in our infinite self, we want to experience infinity, all polarities, the darkness and the light that make up the contrast of our experience. And so we see this mirrored holographically, symbolically, fractally, and spirally, but let's not get carried away, in our soul matrix, in the idea that it is infinity played out in a kind of step down form. It's like many different lives, many different experiences, past life, future lives, different dimensions of reality. It's not quite infinite, but there's like millions and millions of experiences, all multidimensionally within our consciousness as a soul. And so we're playing out the roles in Sirius and the Pleiades and Arcturus and the Yael and the Pleial and the Shakani and Andromeda and Lyra and all these beautiful love-light civilizations that are here to upgrade us. We're also exploring within our matrix consciousness of our soul realities that were more darker, that were more challenging, that were more perhaps where we even chose the dark path and got lost in fear. And so I believe that most of us have incarnations in both the dark and the light sides, in these very challenging dark dimensions as well, so we can learn about the nature of reality being both a polarity of darkness and light. And so the idea is that it's all cyclical. When we've gone through these cycles of thousands of years of the Anunnaki controlling us, and then the idea is that the Anunnaki are now coming back and they're now the good guys, and even Enlil's turned himself around and they want to help us now. And the idea is that the Greys are interacting with us and we're beginning to form a new understanding of reality, and perhaps we're even going to begin to interact with the Orion system more and more and come to sort of understanding of how we can transmute the darkness into the light. And so this is the understanding that how our multidimensional self is like reflected in our soul matrix, and how we are beginning to tune into these higher aspects of ourselves, these aspects of our higher consciousness. And we understand that we are a multidimensional soul, and we've come to Earth at this time to transmute the darkness within ourselves, within the soul, and to understand what it means to move within into the light, in like whilst embracing our infinite self as we move into this like unified consciousness. And yeah, and so where was I? So I guess the idea is that we're beginning to see, yeah, that the more we can tune into these other aspects of ourselves, the more we learn about the nature of reality, and the more we learn about the darkness, the more we are able to choose the light, because we understand how the nature of reality operates, and we understand how we always have choice and free will. More and more it becomes more clear, the more we understand how the darkness operates, the more we understand how the light operates, and so the more we are able to choose the light, because we understand the mechanics of creation. And so this is the process, and what's occurring is like us as souls, like having had past lives in the Anunnaki, having had past lives in Orion, and having had lives in the Grey Federation, where things have gone like catastrophic and haywire, and like we've destroyed our planet and our worlds, and things have all gone wrong. We're now bringing this into our collective consciousness as we go through this massive acceleration of consciousness, and we're recycling it all, and we're beginning to see reality multidimensionally, and so we can process stuff on many different levels. And so as we go through this this critical transformation of consciousness on Earth, which really is like this huge transformation on a universal scale, there's very few places in the universe where we can experience such a rapid transition from the darkness into the light, which is what we're experiencing through the shift from third density to fourth density at present. And so these multidimensional aspects of ourself that we can begin to tap into are all reflections of what we're exploring as a soul and as a greater consciousness. And so they're all here to teach us something. What can we learn about this? Should we fight fire with fire? Do we disregard our heart's consciousness and compassion and love and focus only on technology? Do we focus only on our own civilization at the expense of other civilizations? So we see lots of lessons and opportunities for growth as we begin to explore our greater multidimensional reality that can be used to really accelerate and like crystallize and like forge the diamond out of the carbon that is this transformational period. So yeah, so I hope you got something good from that, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, Shivai.